Chapter 3, The Core Axioms, the Fundamental Pillars of their ism. In the quiet, almost crystalline light of a dawn that never quite arrives in the pages of ordinary history, the philosopher we call Plato presents not a single doctrine but a lattice of claims so tightly interwoven that to loosen one strand would threaten to undo the whole fabric. If the portrait of a philosopher is to be more than a sketch, this chapter must map the backbone of his system, the core axioms that sustain what later readers would call Platonism. These axioms are not merely assertions about metaphysical objects, they are commitments about how being and knowing, virtue and order, life and politics ought to be understood. They are the pillars of an ism that seeks not to catalogue truths but to illuminate a way of seeing and a way of living. Axiom I, reality is structured in two realms, form and flux. From the outset, Plato asks us to imagine a distinction so stark that it reframes ordinary experience. The flux of the visible world, the changing shadows that move before our senses, appears to be real in some sense, yet its reality is derivative, pale, and dependent. By contrast, the realm of the forms, or ideas, presents itself as unchanging, perfect, and intelligible. This is the heart of the two-world thesis, the backbone of the forms. To speak of the forms is not to jazz truth away in a cabinet of abstractions but to identify the enduring templates that give concrete things their shape. A chair in the world of becoming is a mere participation in, or a flawed echo of, the form of chairness. A beauty seen in many particular persons or landscapes is a derivation from the form of beauty itself. The forms are not the products of human minds, they are the sources of intelligibility. Without them, knowledge would dissolve into opinion, and the sensory world, no matter how persuasive its appearances, would lack the constancy required for truth. Thus the core axiom here is not a playful equation about mind and matter but a geopolitical claim about where reality truly resides. The sensible world is not nothing, it is a necessary, teachable mirror that invites assent. But assent is possible only because the forms are. Reality, in its deepest sense, is structured, coherent, and transcendent of mere appearance. Axiom 2, the form of the good is the source of intelligibility and value. If the forms constitute the realm of being, there is a supreme form that orders and illuminates all others, the form of the good. Where the form of truth explains being, the form of the good explains why being is knowable and why beings are valuable. It is not simply a bright light in the sky of the forms, it is the principle that makes intelligible the relations between forms and the objects we encounter in the sensible world. In practical terms, the good is the end toward which reasoning, virtue, and purposeful action aim. It radiates the conditions under which knowledge can be had. Without the good, the forms would be obscure, the line between opinion and knowledge blurred, and the soul left to stumble through shadows. The good gives order to the soul's ascent, and it gives moral energy to the state's laws and institutions. As a philosophical axis, it anchors both metaphysical speculation and ethical appraisal. Even in the Republic's stern judgments of political life, the pursuit of the good remains the ultimate horizon. To know the good is not to possess a mere fact, it is to align one's life with a standard that makes judgment possible and action meaningful. Axiom 3. Knowledge is recollection, the soul's prior acquaintance with the forms. Plato's epistemology is, in a word, restorative. He proposes that learning is not the injection of new information into a blank slate but the process of recollection. The soul, having before its birth glimpsed the eternal forms, remembers what it once knew. This is not a populist appeal to memory for its own sake, it is a theory about the possibility and method of genuine knowledge. What our senses can report to us, whether a geometric figure's perfection, a mathematical truth's necessity, or a moral law's weight, depends on the soul's capacity to recall what it has already perceived in the realm of the forms. The philosophical mind, therefore, must discipline itself to move away from the mists of opinion toward the clarity of recollection. The dialectic, the concerted, dialogical method by which questions are tested, definitions sharpened, and distractions pruned, serves as the instrument for awakening recollection. In this sense, education is a process of unforgetting, not the mere accumulation of new facts. Axiom 4. The divided line and the ascent from illusion to knowledge. If the two realms provide a binary map of reality, the divided line offers a more concrete guide to how the soul ascends. The line divides existence into 4 segments, typically read as 4 degrees of cognition: images, beliefs, abstract reasoning, and the forms themselves, the ultimate grasp. The lower segments correspond to the realm of appearance, shadows and reflections, while the upper segments ascend toward the realm of reason and the forms. This is not a trivial pedagogical chart, it encodes a vision of education and life. Most people occupy the lower rungs, swayed by opinion, appetite, or social convention. The philosopher, however, climbs through dialectical argument, mathematical inquiry, and contemplative ascent, shedding the intoxication of the sensory world until, at last, the form of the good shines with a clarity that makes all other knowledge coherent. The divided line thus embodies a central claim: clarity and truth are not accidents of insight but the fruit of a disciplined ascent. The soul's progress is not random, it is a deliberate trajectory toward intelligibility and form. Axiom V. The soul is a triad: reason, spirit, appetite, and justice is harmony. For Plato, the inner life mirrors the order of the cosmos. The soul is not a monolithic engine of desire but a composite arrangement in which 3 parts contend for mastery. The rational part aims at truth and governs appetite and passion. The spirited part, thumos, or the will to spiritedness, houses courage, honor, and rightful indignation. The appetited part seeks bodily pleasures and material goods. Justice in the individual arises when these parts are properly ordered: reason rules, spirit supports reason, and appetite follows, restrained by the governance of the whole. This microcosmic harmony mirrors the macrocosmic health of the city-state, where rulers, who should be philosophers, calibrate law and desire to serve the common good. When justice is present within a person, the soul itself becomes a stable city of the self, a micro-order that reflects the macro-order of the cosmos. If the soul is misruled, disorder follows, and vice masquerades as virtue. The axiom of the tripartite soul thus ties metaphysics to ethics and politics, insisting that true knowledge bears fruit only if life is ordered in concord with reason and the good. Axiom 6. Virtue is knowledge, ignorance is the absence of right understanding. In this axiom, Plato makes a radical claim about moral psychology: virtue is knowledge. If one truly knows what is good, one will freely and consistently do what is good. The paradox of wrongdoing, people acting against their own interest or good, appears only if knowledge is separated from action. Plato's answer is not cynicism about human frailty but a stringent demand that virtue rests on the grasp of the form of the good and its consequences. This axiom does not ignore practical constraints, rather it reframes moral education as an epistemic project. To cultivate virtue is to cultivate the precise understanding that certain ends justify certain means, that justice is beneficial to the whole, that the soul's health depends on temperance and order. When the soul knows, it acts in accordance with that knowledge; when it lacks knowledge, it flounders in appetite and fear, mistaking appearances for reality. There is a moral economy here: knowledge yields aspirational power, and virtue becomes the natural outgrowth of understanding. The policy consequence is the belief that rulers must be trained in philosophy, for they must know the good to perform their duties with justice. Axiom 7. Education and dialectic as ascent to the form of the good. Education in the Platonic system is not the passive receiving of information, it is an ascent through memory, reason, and rigorous dialogic inquiry. The dialectic is the apex of the educational project. It is not mere debate for its own sake but a method capable of stripping away misperceptions, exposing contradictions, and guiding the soul toward the ultimate object of knowledge. It begins with the moral and mathematical training that disciplines the mind and eyes the soul toward truth. It proceeds through the sciences that perfect the intellect: geometry, astronomy, arithmetic, up to the study of philosophical reasoning itself. This education is not a private privilege of elites alone. In the ideal city, it is the responsibility of the polity to cultivate citizens who can discern truth from illusion and who are prepared to govern in the light of knowledge. The ultimate aim of education is to enable the soul to behold the good as a living reality. It is through education that the forms, including the good, are not only understood but instantatively embodied in action, just as the good laws of a city become second nature to its guardians. Axiom 8. Political philosophy. The philosopher king as the legitimate ruler and the city as a living organism. Plato's political prognosis is inseparable from his metaphysical commitments. A city can only flourish if its rulers possess the knowledge of the good and are thus able to govern justly. The philosopher kings are not self-interested elites but guardians who understand the form of justice and are thus capable of aligning law, policy, and virtue. They are not daunted by the difficulties of practical governance. On the contrary, their education equips them to see the long arc of the city's life and to correct drift before harm becomes irreversible. The governance structure intimately reflects the soul's hierarchy. The rulers, reason, govern the auxiliaries, spirited elements, and the producing class, appetitive elements, fulfill their roles under the supervision of the whole. This tripartite order is not tyranny by the rational few but harmony achieved through knowledge. To the Platonic mind, democracy, where the many rule and appetites override reason, is a dangerous misalignment of the city's soul. The core axiom here is that political legitimacy rests on epistemic legitimacy. Only those who know the good should shepherd the common life, because knowledge, rightly applied, becomes the chief instrument of justice and peace. Axiom 9. The arts and the order of the soul. Censorship as educational tool, not mere restriction. In Plato's hands, art is not pristine magic but a moral instrument whose influence must be read carefully. The forms provide the standard by which we evaluate appearances, and art, as imitation, is a step removed from reality. The poet and the painter, who present shadows of shadows, can lead the soul astray by appealing to emotion without guiding it toward truth. In the Republic, art must be regulated to prevent natures from being corrupted or corrupted to prevent the city from turning away from truth. Yet this axiom is not a blanket condemnation of beauty or poetry. It is a normative claim about education. Art should support the ascent to knowledge, not enthrall the senses. Good art, in a Platonic regime, would illuminate virtue, reverence for the good, and the beauty of order. It would not celebrate or intensify vice or disorder. The aim is to steward the soul, not simply to entertain it. Here, aesthetics becomes a pedagogy and a political instrument, designed to sustain the moral and intellectual health of citizens. Axiom X, mathematics, astronomy, and the rationalism that binds cosmos and mind. Plato's world is a world of rational order. Mathematics, especially geometry, and astronomy occupy a privileged place in education because they train the mind to recognize perfect forms in a changing world. The precision of mathematical reasoning is a preparation for the soul to perceive the eternal as it manifests in structure. The heavens, with their regular motions, offer a living metaphor for the harmony of the forms. The universe is not chaotic, it is a cosmos governed by intelligible laws that the rational soul can discern. This axiom ties epistemology and metaphysics to natural philosophy. To study mathematics is to prepare for philosophy. To understand the heavens is to glimpse a cosmos that mirrors the rational order ordained by the good. The mathematical discipline thus functions as a bridge between the sensory and the intelligible, a sober rung on the ladder by which the soul attains knowledge and, thereby, virtue. Axiom 11. The afterlife and the immortality of the soul, judgment, purification, and the continuity of being. A consequence of the soul's immortality is a moral logic that extends beyond a single lifetime. The soul's ascent, if it is true, does not terminate with the death of the body but continues into another form of life in which the soul's deeds are weighed. The moral consequences of one's choices, the cultivation of virtue during life or the persistence of vice, create patterns that endure beyond the present world. The soul's fate underscores the seriousness of the ascent. What is learned, what is practiced, and what is purged in this life has an enduring significance. This axiom also reframes the purpose of life. The philosopher's task is to prepare the soul for the afterlife by aligning it with the good and purifying it of misperception and appetite that mislead. The cosmos, in this sense, is not merely a physical order but a teleological one. The soul's purification is part of a larger order toward which all beings are oriented. Axiom 12, the unity of the good life, the interdependence of virtue, knowledge, and happiness. In the final sense, the core axioms converge on a simple, radical claim: a life governed by the good is the best life. Knowledge of the good yields virtue, virtue leads to harmony within the soul and within the city, harmony culminates in a just and flourishing life. Happiness, for Plato, is not the mere satisfaction of desires, it is the alignment of the soul with truth and the good, a state of inner peace that radiates outward as justice in action. The unity of the good life is not an ideal but a rigorous ideal, demanding that the individual and the polity cultivate wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice as inseparable companions. Conclusion: the architecture of Platonicism, why these axioms endure. What unites these axioms into a single, coherent system is not their occasional appeal to abstractions but their mutual entailment. Each axiom supports and is supported by the others. The two realms require the good for intelligibility, recollection and dialectic anchor learning. The soul's structure frames moral psychology, education, art, and politics translate abstract forms into lived life without severing the chain that binds knowledge to action. The philosopher's task is to bear witness to this architecture, to see the forms, to understand their significance, and to apply that understanding to the city's life. To speak of the core axioms as the pillars of their ism is to acknowledge a particular ambition, to elevate human life from the merely perceptual to the intelligible, from the merely practical to the wise. The axioms do not pretend to exhaust every question, nor do they claim to provide a blueprint for every contingency. They are, rather, a map of possibility, a map that invites the reader to enter a disciplined practice of thinking, judging, and acting in light of ultimate realities. They propose a vision in which truth, beauty, virtue, and order are not accidental alignments but inseparable facets of a single reality. A few empathetic reflections on the person behind the points. In contemplating these axioms as a portrait, not merely a set of propositions but a living, breathing way of existence, one observes a temperament rather than a temperamentally fixed theory. The philosopher's mind is patient, exact, and inexhaustibly curious. It trembles at the edge of a new definition and then resolves the tremor by returning to the core, unity, form, and the good. The soul is imagined as a musician tuning its instruments to resonate with the cosmos harmonies. The city, likewise, becomes a chorus of voices seeking a common pitch, a shared justice that makes life possible in common. Plato's ism is thus a dense cultural and intellectual project, a call to recognize a deeper order, to educate a people to participate in that order, and to govern with a mind trained to see rather than merely to calculate. The core axioms are not mere abstractions suiting a scholar's cabinet of curiosities, they are a program for transforming human life and communal life alike. They invite us to climb, patiently and rigorously, toward a horizon where being, knowing, and living converge in the bright summit of the good. If one seeks to summarize the essence of the chapter in a single sentence, it would be this: the Platonic system rests on the conviction that reality consists of enduring forms governing a mutable world, that knowledge rests on a recollected grasp of these forms and their supreme cause, that the soul and the city alike must be ordered to reflect this form-ordered reality, and that the truly good life is the life in which this order is recognized, pursued, and embodied. The core axioms are the scaffolding that turns a speculative philosophy into a practiced discipline, the architecture of an ism that has endured far beyond its age because it has insisted that truth is not a shadow on a wall but the lawfulness of light itself. As we close this chapter, the reader is invited to consider not only what these axioms claim but how they would answer the test of any era. What counts as knowledge? What constitutes virtue? What is the right form of political life? What is the highest aim of education? How does beauty relate to truth? In Plato's account, the answers to these questions are not arbitrary. They are coordinates in a single, luminous map, the map of the forms, the line to the good, and the ascent of the soul toward a greater, more lasting reality. The portrait is not simply of a thinker, but of a vision that insists the world can be more intelligible, and that human life can be nobler than the appearances would lead us to believe. This, perhaps, is the most lasting gift of the core axioms, a persistent invitation to rise from illusion to understanding, from appetite to virtue, from the merely possible to the truly good.